In Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and a Holocaust survivor, stated that under unimaginable suffering, those who survived weren't necessarily the strongest, but those who found meaning in their suffering. Frankl described 3 pathways to meaning. First, by creating a contribution. Second, by experiencing love, beauty, or connection. Third, by the attitude one takes towards unavoidable suffering. In today's video, we will use these 3 pillars to explore meaning in a career-oriented, capitalistic world. We will explore whether we should aim to derive meaning from work or not, what counts as a career versus a hobby or something entirely different, and if we were to choose to derive meaning from our career, how do we do it in a way that protects our mental health and our autonomy over our derivation of said meaning, our time, and ultimately our lives? Creativity, to me, embodies all 3 of the pillars. Of course, you are creating something, but underneath and within that, you are also experiencing something in the process of this creation. You are immersed and connected, and it is that pursuit of creativity that feels good. That pursuit is contributing in some way to society. Within this pursuit, your attitude drives your emotions and psychological framing of what is happening in your world, what you are doing, and what you are striving for. Creativity is in every corner of what we do. It's not just in art. It lives in lesson plans, recipes, crafting an argument in a legal case, within the framework of the laws of the land, dodgy accounting, building a vegetable garden, just to name a few. Engaging in these activities that you are genuinely drawn towards and have a level of control over how the work is done, no matter how ordinary or extraordinary, is a powerful source of meaning. One of the most common tropes of the modern capitalistic world is to follow your dreams. But what happens when our meaning is derived from our professional output and is also tied to our identity? Erikson's identity theory suggests that a healthy self spans across multiple domains: career, relationships, leisure, spirituality, creativity, and our values. When we over-invest in just one, we are actually quite fragile. Not only that, but research has shown that those who tie self-worth to their job are more prone to depression and anxiety, especially when change inevitably comes. So how do we follow our dreams, our passions, and derive meaning with the little time we have in the day when so much of our time is spent working, with the understanding that our identity shouldn't be tied to our work, even though it is in our interests that derive that meaning? Well, it's complicated. It's not necessarily true that your identity has to be tied to your passions. However, I understand if it is. For me, music is what I would call soul work. It is me. And so I have to ask myself, do I really want the stability of my finances and my shelter and my food to be tied up in the capitalistic metric of my soul? Self-determination theory explains that motivation requires the freedom to choose how you do things, feeling capable of doing the things you need to do, and a connection to others or a bigger picture or a greater purpose. If financial success becomes our only source of meaning, we lose control and we might chase after what works instead of what feels true to us. And people can become levers to pull in service of your success. Paradoxically, even high achievers can end up feeling hollow if they are unbalanced in favour of career success. Yet, our work can be meaningful. When aligned with our values, we become connected to ancient drives to build and to contribute. And in these moments where we experience flow and our mind is stretched to its limits in voluntary effort, what we are engaging in is a pursuit that is deeply human, and our mind and body reward us with a deep sense of profound pleasure. Different to hedonistic pleasure, somewhat indescribable, this is intrinsic pleasure or intrinsic motivation, and it is a reward for engaging in something that your soul calls for. Unfortunately, this means that life is not an even playing field, but we know that already, and so you must aim to carve out meaning in your own way, within your own limitations of your system. And if you play the game well enough and with a bit of luck, you may be able to help others do the same. So, how do we derive meaning in a balanced way? The answer may lie in part with our ability to engage in metacognition, which is our ability to think about our own thinking. Those with a strong reflective practice build narratives around their lives, linking effort with pursuit. In this way, it's not just about doing work, it's about interpreting the work itself. This is how we transform caregiving, service, and other maybe routine tasks into sources of meaning rather than simply an action for money, or an action that you have to do for survival. It's about asking the why of it all and removing yourself and what is asked for you and what you need out of it financially from the center of what you're engaging in. Maslow's hierarchy of needs suggests that people cannot necessarily climb towards meaning as a higher order need if survival is unstable. Somewhat ironically within this framework, given creativity is fundamentally seen as the most internal form of work and expression and the main focus of this channel, the gig economy, so often attached to creativity and glorified as passion-driven, is in reality a precarious and exhausting endeavour. This is fertile ground for anxiety, not self-actualization and/or transcendence. Yet, even those at the top of the heap, CEOs, artists, leaders, face a different trap: over-identification with the source of their income and an imbalance via massive time spent in a career-oriented way. Plus, the more success you have in your career, generally speaking, you have bigger problems to solve, larger projects to engage in with more complexity, and in a way, you are probably chipping away at the level of control and freedom you have within your work. This is where transcendence comes in. At the highest level, meaning is derived from moving beyond self-interest. It's about contribution and helping others self-actualize. So in this way, the ones at the top of the heap who retain their reflective practice are the most likely to derive a deep sense of meaning and let go of the anxiety and lack of control they may feel in some areas of their work. A nurse can meet their basic financial and transcendence needs in one act of caring. A CEO can do so by continuously positioning themselves in service of the goal of the business. A celebrity can do so by continuously striving to mentor others in their own pursuits. It's no wonder that people assume that they need to follow their dreams in a capitalistic way to be happy. Gallup consistently reports that over 60% of employees feel emotionally detached from work, and around 1 in 5 are miserable. This may lead to people thinking that what they need to do is quit their job and start painting or whatever. Yet, people who pursue all their needs simultaneously and have balance are able to integrate their meaning into their daily life. It is both an individual responsibility to design a life and a corporate, responsibility to design work roles that are meaningful. Roles that are meaningful do produce greater capital and productivity in the long run anyway, even though that's not the purpose of this video. In today's world, so often capitalism confines people to the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, focusing on food and shelter. Modern work culture has commodified time. Every hour is an opportunity cost. Because of this, reflection can be seen as lazy. We become achievement subjects, exploiting ourselves until we collapse. This is not freedom, this is coercion. This environment has made it such that metacognition and reflective practice feels irresponsible and like a waste of time. Erik Erikson said, "In the mode of having, one's identity depends on what one possesses and produces, not what one is." And how can you figure out who you are and what you're working towards if you can't spend the time thinking about it? In an ideal world, we would all work less and have more autonomy, and we should strive towards that. This is particularly important for artists to hear, in my opinion, as top artists routinely say that their creative engagement is only roughly 2 to 3 hours a day. And it is how they spend the rest of that time that informs the ability to engage in creativity in the long run. In other words, if you can fit even just 30 to 60 minutes of creativity in your day, you're not too far behind the top of the heap. Acknowledging, however, that different lifestyles, some within our control and some not, contribute to the level of energy and time one actually has to pursue their creativity in their own time. We all have responsibility. Well, most of us do. And in this world where we must work, we owe it to ourselves to examine how we might derive meaning from our work without making it our full identity. Through this lens, there is no such thing as meaningless work, only unexamined work. And if you are lucky to financially succeed when following your dreams, you owe it to yourself to continue to reflect and ensure that your identity is not so tied to your output that affects your mental health and to mentor others. Aim to tie your identity to the process rather than what the world gives you in return for your efforts. Metacognition and reflective practice requires unstructured time, rest, boredom, and safety, which is hard to come by these days, and we are all at a different starting point. Pursue what you can and stay kind to yourself. 10 years down the track, you never truly know where you might end up. So you might as well fill your days with intention. So, how might we design a meaningful life? Well, here are some tips. These are tips only. Take what you want from them. Stay consciously aware of where your meaning comes from. Don't confuse financial freedom with purpose. Reflect deliberately. Develop an internal sense of control, focusing on what you can shape and accepting what you can't. Know yourself. Review your motivations, your drives, your values, and your passions. What are your strengths you can lean into? And what are your developmental areas? Or, simply, areas you should aim to avoid so far as reasonable. And stay adaptable. Life evolves, you evolve, play. If you can, coaching can help with all of these things. If you can't, you can at least consume meaningful content on the internet. Reconstruct your story. Anchor your life within your passions and what you are pursuing. There is nobility in crafting meaning outside your work if that is what seems best for you. Consider this paradox. Many people discover meaning when they have less time. For example, those who have children. This is in part, I think, because time becomes limited, options become limited, and life is in this way simpler. Choices narrow and clarity increases. Erikson calls this generativity versus stagnation. In parenthood, the urge to care, mentor, and contribute to the next generation removes our own ego from the center of our existence, allowing us to engage in what Maslow would call the peak of human well-being, transcendent practices. It is that commitment that one intentionally subscribes to that can provide you with meaning. Ultimately, making meaning is both personal and collective. It is a paradox of self-reflection and self-transcendence. Thinking deeply about your own life while acting beyond yourself. Whether you tie meaning to your own career or not is your choice. But if creativity to you is soul work, be careful in attaching the capitalistic success of your creativity to your ability to survive. Meaning doesn't come from the work, it comes from the pursuit of that work in service of something greater than yourself. Remember Frankl, ensure you create and contribute, ensure you experience, and ensure your attitude is one that serves you through the unavoidable idiosyncrasies of life. Have fun. So, the question remains, should you aim to derive meaning from your career? Or should your career be just one instrument in a larger composition? It's up to you. Let me know in the comments.